The year is 2008. The US financial system is melting down faster than ice cream in a Singapore hawker center. Lehman Brothers, an investment bank older than your great-grandparents, collapses overnight. Trillions of dollars in wealth disappear. Stock markets are crashing down harder than you heading to sleep. Oh shoots, people are in full panic mode. Americans are asking questions like, will I lose my house? Will I lose my job? And most importantly, can I still afford Netflix? Oh wait, it doesn't exist yet. Everywhere, economies are being dragged underwater. But in Singapore, something strange happens. Even though the economy is super slow, exports is super low. But Singapore doesn't sink. Instead, it steadies the ship. Instead of financial chaos, Singapore pulls out an economic flex so legendary. Other countries are left blinking like, wait a minute, brother. How did they do that? This is the story of how a little red dot with no oil, no farmland, and way too much humidity survived the worst financial crisis in decades. To understand 2008, we need to rewind a little. The early 2000s were party years for the global economy. America was booming. China was growing like a teenager on an all-protein diet, and global trade was flowing like Tatarik. And Singapore? Singapore was loving it. By then, the country had transformed itself into a global financial hub. Now, what does that mean? A financial hub is like the airport of money. Just like Changi Airport is where passengers transit between flights. Singapore became the place where money from all over the world passed through. Banks from Europe, hedge funds from New York, insurance giants from Japan. All of them set up offices in Singapore. Why? It's stable, it's efficient, and you can get laksa for lunch instead of a lame Western sandwich.
Hey guys, we just invented a mortgage that nobody understands.
Yo sister, we just invented chicken rice with extra chili. But ours actually works.
The economy was roaring. Exports of electronics, pharmaceuticals, and shipping services were flying off the charts. Unemployment was low. Salaries were rising. Singapore's stock market was climbing. Property was hot. It felt like nothing could go wrong. But here's the thing about globalization. When your economy depends on the world, you don't just enjoy the party, you also share the hangover. And in 2008, the hangover hit like a truck. So what actually happened? Why did the world economy collapse? Here's the short version. America's banks made really dumb bets. Here's the long version. Banks in the US were giving out something called subprime mortgages. Now, subprime is just a polite way of saying loans given to people who probably can't pay them back. Imagine lending your cousin money even though he's terrible at returning things. You know he still owes you your PlayStation controller from 2003. But you give him another loan anyway. That's subprime. But banks didn't just give out these risky loans. They got greedy. They bundled thousands of them together, sliced them into complicated products with fancy names like collateralized debt obligations, and sold them to investors all around the world. The pitch was, don't worry, housing prices always go up. Spoiler alert, they don't. When American homeowners started defaulting, meaning they couldn't pay, the whole system collapsed. The so-called safe investments turned out to be garbage. Banks went bankrupt. Credit markets froze. And because the US economy is the beating heart of global trade, when it flatlined, everyone else felt the pain. For Singapore, the 2008 crisis wasn't just a drizzle. It was a full-blown thunderstorm with lightning, hail, and your kopi spilling on your white shirt at the same time. Why? Because Singapore's economy is ridiculously open. Most countries produce a lot for themselves. They farm their own food, make their own cars, even manufacture their own toothpaste. Singapore? Nope. Singapore imports chicken from Malaysia, rice from Thailand, and toothpaste from literally everywhere else. Here's the fun fact that economists love to drop at dinner parties. Singapore's total trade is about 2 times its GDP. Translation: if Singapore's economy were a person, it would basically survive by eating food cooked in someone else's kitchen, delivered by someone else's driver, and paid for with someone else's credit card. So when the US and Europe caught pneumonia, Singapore didn't just sneeze. It went into a coughing fit. Exports collapsed. Electronics, pharmaceuticals, shipping, all down. The PSA port, usually buzzing with containers stacked like Jenga towers, suddenly looked more like a sleepy car park on a Sunday morning. The Singapore stock market plunged almost 60%. Imagine watching your life savings shrink faster than ice cocoon under the afternoon sun. Investors panicked. Retirees panicked. Even your dentist who bought sure-win bank stocks started quietly researching how to do fillings from home. GDP growth flipped negative. For a country used to reporting plus 6% or plus 7% growth, like it was standard copy order, suddenly seeing minus 2% was like ordering copio and getting plain hot water. Unthinkable. Factories slowed down. Electronics plants, once running 24/7 to pump out semiconductors, started looking more like ghost towns. Workers feared retrenchment. HR departments printed way too many exit interview forms. The mood was grim. The little red dot that had become the poster child of globalization was suddenly choking on the very globalization it depended on. The economy that once sprinted ahead like Michael Phelps in a swimming pool was now gasping for air, wondering if the race was already lost. Now here's where Singapore was different. While other countries were scrambling like headless chickens, Singapore calmly reached for its secret weapon, reserves. Reserves are basically a nation's savings account. Money that the government tucks away during good times for use in bad times. And Singapore had a lot of reserves. Why? Because from day one, Singapore had been obsessed with saving. Every budget surplus, every extra dollar earned, was carefully tucked away into funds managed by institutions like GIC and Temasek. Other countries? They spent like there was no tomorrow. Singapore? It was the strict Asian parent of the financial world.
Come on, guys. We need to borrow more money to save the banks.
Give me my money.
In October 2008, the Singapore government made a bold move. It guaranteed all bank deposits, $150 billion worth. That meant if you had money in a Singaporean bank, it was 100% safe. No need to panic. No need to withdraw cash. No need to stuff money under your mattress. And just like that, confidence was restored. But they didn't stop there. For the first time in history, the government tapped into the reserves. $4.9 billion was drawn out. Some of that money went into the jobs credit scheme, basically paying companies to keep workers instead of firing them. Employers received wage subsidies, which meant workers kept their jobs even when business slowed. At the same time, Singapore rolled out massive infrastructure projects, new MRT lines, road upgrades, housing. It was like the Oprah show of public works. You get a train station. You get an expressway. Everyone gets stimulus. The combination of saving jobs and building infrastructure pumped money back into the economy. By mid-2009, Singapore's quick, disciplined response started working. Exports picked up. Factories restarted. Confidence returned. And by 2010, Singapore wasn't just recovering, it was leading the pack. GDP grew almost 15% that year, one of the fastest in the world. Why? Because while other countries wasted years cleaning up debt and rebuilding trust, Singapore had planned ahead. The reserves gave it firepower, the guarantees gave it stability, and the discipline gave it credibility.
I thought we're too big to fail.
We're too disciplined to fail.
The 2008 global financial crisis was like an earthquake that flattened entire economies. The US housing market? Rubble. European banks? Shaken to the core. Even mighty Japan got stuck in another lost decade of weak growth. And more than a decade later, some countries still hadn't fully recovered. People lost homes. Governments drowned in debt. Confidence in capitalism itself cracked. But Singapore? Singapore showed the world something strange, something boring. It proved that being boring can actually be a superpower. Think about it. Saving money during the good times isn't glamorous. Nobody's throwing a parade when the government announces, "Good news! We spent less than we earned." Guaranteeing bank deposits isn't flashy. You don't get TikTok dances or Super Bowl ads about that. Running budget surpluses? Definitely not sexy. It's like showing up to a party with a calculator. Because here's the thing. When the storm hit, Singapore already had its umbrella ready. While other countries scrambled to borrow money, Singapore just unlocked its vault of reserves. While others panicked about bank runs, Singapore calmly guaranteed every deposit. And while Wall Street was on fire, Singapore was sipping kopi saying, "Relax, we've got cash and chicken rice." That's the magic of foresight. Most countries prayed to survive 2008. Singapore planned to survive 2008, and that made all the difference.